Ethan Carter had always believed in the promise of peace. For years, humanity had looked to the stars, wondering if they were alone. When the Galactic Council finally made contact, it felt like a dream come true. The Council was an alliance of advanced alien species, each with technology far beyond anything Earth could imagine. They spoke of unity, of sharing knowledge and resources to help lesser civilizations grow. Ethan, a skilled diplomat known for his calm demeanor and sharp mind, was chosen to represent Earth in these historic negotiations. The Council's orbital station hung in the void above Earth, a massive structure that shimmered like a jewel against the blackness of space. Ethan stepped off the shuttle, feeling both excitement and unease. He was escorted to a grand chamber where representatives from dozens of alien species waited. Their forms varied. Some were tall and insect-like, others humanoid but with glowing eyes or shimmering skin. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing: power. And Ethan knew he was walking into their domain. The talks began smoothly enough. The Council praised humanity's achievements, calling them remarkable for such a young species. But as the days passed, Ethan started noticing small signs that something wasn't right. The Council's offers seemed too good to be true. Unlimited energy, medical advancements, and access to faster-than-light travel. Yet every agreement came with strings attached, subtle clauses that would give the Council control over Earth's governments and resources. One night, unable to shake his suspicions, Ethan decided to investigate further. Using his credentials, he accessed restricted areas of the station. What he found chilled him to the bone. Hidden files revealed the Council's true intentions. Once Earth joined, they planned to strip the planet bare. Its oceans would be drained, its forests burned, and its people enslaved to serve the Council's endless hunger for expansion. Humanity wasn't being welcomed as an equal, it was being marked for exploitation. Ethan's heart raced as he copied the data onto a portable drive. He had to warn Earth, but getting out wouldn't be easy. As he hurried back to the docking bay, alarms blared throughout the station. Someone had discovered his intrusion. Guards chased him through twisting corridors, their weapons firing bolts of energy that scorched the walls around him. Just as he reached his shuttle, a blast struck the hull, damaging the engines. Desperate, Ethan launched anyway, praying the craft could survive re-entry. The journey back to Earth was harrowing. The shuttle shook violently as it entered the atmosphere, flames licking at its exterior. When it finally touched down in a remote desert, Ethan stumbled out, battered but alive. He immediately contacted Earth's leaders, showing them the evidence of the Council's betrayal. But not everyone believed him. Some accused him of fabricating the story to gain fame or power. Others simply refused to accept that the aliens they admired could be so cruel. Despite the skepticism, Ethan didn't give up. He knew what he had seen, and what was coming. The Council wouldn't wait long before making their move. Humanity had been betrayed, but Ethan vowed to fight back. If no one else would stand against the invaders, then he would. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a war that would test the limits of human courage and ingenuity. Ethan knew he couldn't face the Council alone. He needed help, people who could think quickly, act decisively, and believe in humanity's potential to fight back. His first stop was a small research facility tucked away in the mountains of Colorado. There he found Mia Collins, a scientist whose name had been whispered in awe among Earth's brightest minds. Mia wasn't just smart, she was fearless, always pushing boundaries and questioning limits. When Ethan showed her the stolen data from the Council, her eyes widened in shock, but she didn't hesitate. "This changes everything," Maya said, her voice steady despite the weight of what she'd just learned. "If we're going to stand a chance, we'll need weapons they don't expect, technology that can match theirs, or even surpass it." Ethan nodded. "That's why I came to you. Can you do it?" Mia smiled faintly. "I'll need time, resources, and a team I can trust. But yes, I can do it." With Mia on board, Ethan turned his attention to finding someone who could train others to fight. He traveled to a military base in Texas, where Jake Monroe was stationed. Jake had once been a Marine pilot, known for his daring maneuvers and unshakable determination. After leaving the service, he'd become a flight instructor, teaching young recruits how to handle jets. When Ethan explained the situation, Jake listened silently, his jaw tightening with each word. "You're telling me aliens are planning to enslave us," Jake said finally, his tone flat. "And you want me to help you fight them?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "We don't have much time. If we don't prepare now, we won't survive." Jake stared at him for a long moment before nodding. "All right. Count me in." Together, Ethan, Mia, and Jake formed the core of a secret resistance movement they called Nova Dawn. They set up their headquarters in an abandoned warehouse outside Chicago, gathering volunteers, soldiers, engineers, doctors, and ordinary citizens willing to risk everything for Earth's survival. As Mia worked tirelessly in her makeshift lab, building prototypes of energy weapons and shields based on the Council's technology, Jake trained the recruits using unconventional tactics. He taught them to rely on speed, creativity, and teamwork rather than brute force. But rallying people wasn't easy. Many were still skeptical, refusing to believe the Council posed any real threat. Others thought resistance was futile, convinced humanity stood no chance against such advanced enemies. Ethan spent countless hours speaking to crowds, sharing the evidence he'd gathered and urging them to unite. Slowly, his words began to resonate. Stories of his escape from the Council spread, turning him into a symbol of hope for some and a target for others. One evening, as Ethan walked through the warehouse, he overheard two recruits arguing. One insisted they should strike first, launching attacks on the Council before they could invade. The other argued for caution, saying they weren't ready. Ethan stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "We won't win by rushing blindly into battle," he said. "But we also can't wait for them to come to us. We prepare, we adapt. And when the time is right, we hit them where it hurts." His words seemed to settle the argument, but Ethan felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him. He knew mistakes would be made, sacrifices demanded. Yet he also knew one thing for certain: humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. With Mia's inventions, Jake's training, and the growing ranks of Nova Dawn, they might just stand a chance. As the days passed, the resistance grew stronger, but so did the sense of urgency. The Council's shadow loomed large, and everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the real battle began. The first sign of the Council's attack came without warning. Bright streaks of light tore across the sky, followed by deafening explosions that shook the ground miles below. Cities around the world erupted in flames as the Council's ships unleashed their devastating weapons. New York burned, Tokyo crumbled, and London was reduced to rubble in mere minutes. Panic spread like wildfire as billions of lives were lost in the initial assault. Ethan watched the chaos unfold on a screen in the Nova Dawn headquarters. His hands clenched into fists as he realized the Council wasn't just invading. They were sending a message. Humanity was weak, insignificant, and unworthy of mercy. The images of destruction fueled his anger, but they also hardened his resolve. He turned to Mia and Jake, who stood beside him, their faces grim. "They're trying to break us," Ethan said, his voice low but steady. "If we let fear take over, they win." Mia nodded, her mind already racing with ideas. "We need to hit back. Show them we're not as defenseless as they think." Jake stepped forward, his eyes sharp with determination. "I can lead a strike team. If we hit one of their ships hard enough, it'll buy us time to regroup." Ethan hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. They couldn't afford to sit back and wait. Every second counted. Jake quickly assembled a small squadron of retrofitted fighter jets, equipped with experimental weapons Mia had been working on. The plan was risky, almost suicidal, but it was their best shot at slowing the Council's advance. Under the cover of night, Jake and his team launched from a hidden airbase. The Council's fleet loomed above Earth like a swarm of metallic insects, their massive ships glowing ominously against the dark sky. Jake's heart pounded as he led the charge, weaving through enemy fire with precision. The jet's new plasma cannons roared to life, sending bursts of energy slamming into the hulls of the alien ships. One by one, the Council's vessels began to falter, their defenses overwhelmed by the unexpected resistance. Back at Nova Dawn headquarters, Ethan and Mia monitored the battle from a secure communications room. The tension was unbearable as they waited for updates. Finally, Jake's voice crackled over the radio. "Mission accomplished. We took out 3 ships and damaged 6 more, but we're down to half the squadron. Pulling out now." Relief washed over Ethan, but it was short-lived. The victory was small, a mere scratch against the Council's overwhelming forces. Still, it proved something important. Humanity could fight back. News of the successful strike spread quickly, boosting morale among the resistance. For the first time since the invasion began, people dared to hope. But the Council wasn't done. As Jake's team returned to base, battered but alive, Ethan received intel that changed everything. A massive invasion fleet was en route to Earth, carrying enough firepower to wipe out what little remained of human civilization. The clock was ticking louder than ever. "We need to move faster," Maya said, her fingers flying over a keyboard as she analyzed the data. "If we can locate their supply lines or communication hubs, we might be able to cripple their operations before they reach us." Ethan nodded. "Do whatever it takes. We don't have another chance." As the days passed, Nova Dawn worked around the clock, preparing for the next phase of the war. Jake trained new recruits, pushing them harder than ever. Maya refined her designs, creating even deadlier weapons. And Ethan coordinated with surviving world leaders, urging them to unite under Nova Dawn's banner. It was a fragile alliance, held together by desperation and a shared desire for revenge. The Council had betrayed humanity, but they had made one critical mistake. They underestimated the strength of the human spirit. Ethan knew the road ahead would be brutal, but he also knew one thing for certain: they wouldn't go down without a fight. As the Council's attacks continued, Earth became a wasteland. Cities were reduced to ash, forests burned, and oceans churned with debris from destroyed ships. Survivors fled in every direction, searching for safety. Nova Dawn knew they couldn't stay in their warehouse headquarters any longer. It was too exposed, too vulnerable. They needed a new base, somewhere hidden and secure. Ethan, Mia, and Jake scored maps and schematics until they found the perfect location: the ruins of Chicago. Beneath the shattered skyscrapers lay an old underground subway system, long abandoned but still intact. With some work, it could be transformed into a fortress. They called it Eclipse Base, a place where humanity's last hope could gather and prepare for the battles ahead. The move was chaotic. Refugees poured in by the hundreds, families clutching what little they had left, soldiers limping in with wounds that needed tending, and engineers carrying tools and scraps of machinery salvaged from the wreckage above. Mia set up her lab in one of the larger tunnels, surrounded by glowing monitors and half-finished prototypes. Her hands moved quickly, assembling weapons and defenses that would give humanity a fighting chance. She barely slept, driven by the knowledge that every second counted. Jake, meanwhile, turned part of the base into a training ground. The space was cramped, but he made it work. Using makeshift targets and virtual simulations, he drilled the recruits relentlessly. He taught them how to think on their feet, how to use the environment to their advantage, and how to fight as a team. Many struggled under his strict methods, but no one complained. They all knew what was at stake. Ethan spent most of his time coordinating efforts and keeping morale high. It wasn't easy. The refugees brought stories of loss and despair, tales of loved ones who hadn't made it out alive. Some people whispered about giving up, surrendering to the Council to spare themselves further pain. Ethan listened to their fears, offering words of encouragement whenever he could. "We've already shown them we can fight," he told a group of weary survivors one evening. "Every ship we destroy, Every attack we survive. It proves we're stronger than they thought. If we stick together, we can win this." Despite his reassurances, tension simmered beneath the surface. Supplies were running low, and the constant threat of discovery loomed over them. Scouts reported seeing Council drones patrolling the skies, scanning for signs of resistance. Everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the enemy found them. One day, a young woman named Rachel Dawson arrived at the base. She had been living in hiding since the invasion began, but her luck ran out when Council forces raided her shelter. She managed to escape, but not before overhearing fragments of their plans. When she shared what she'd learned with Ethan and Mia, it sent shockwaves through the group. "They're experimenting on humans," Rachel said, her voice trembling. "Taking prisoners and changing them, turning them into something else." Mia's face went pale. "Hybrid soldiers," she murmured. "They're creating troops that look human but are loyal to the Council." The revelation hit hard. Not only were they fighting an alien army, but now they had to worry about enemies wearing familiar faces. Ethan clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. The Council had crossed another line, but there was no time to dwell on it. They had to adapt, to find new ways to protect themselves. As the days passed, Eclipse Base became a hive of activity. Mia worked tirelessly to improve their defenses, while Jake pushed the recruits harder than ever. Ethan walked among the people, listening to their stories and reminding them why they were fighting. Not just for survival, but for freedom. The road ahead was dark and uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Rachel's arrival at Eclipse Base brought more than just troubling news. It gave Nova Dawn a valuable advantage. Her time in captivity had forced her to learn fragments of the Council's language and understand parts of their communication systems. Though she was still shaken from her ordeal, Rachel agreed to help Mia decode intercepted transmissions. It wasn't easy. The alien language was complex, filled with strange symbols and sounds that didn't match anything human. But Rachel's insights, combined with Mia's technical expertise, began to unravel the Council's secrets. One night, as Ethan paced the dimly lit tunnels of Eclipse Base, Mia rushed up to him, her face flushed with excitement. "We've cracked part of their code," she said, holding up a tablet displaying lines of alien text. "They're planning another major attack on what's left of our military bases. If we don't act, they'll wipe out any organized resistance." Ethan's jaw tightened. "How much time do we have?" 2 days, maybe 3, Maya replied. "But there's something else. Their main supply route runs through the asteroid belt near Mars. If we can disrupt it, we might cripple their operations for weeks." Jake overheard the conversation and stepped closer, his arms crossed. "That's a long way from here. Even if we retrofit one of our ships, getting past their patrols won't be easy." "We don't have a choice," Ethan said firmly. "If we hit their supplies, it buys us time to prepare for their next move. We need volunteers for this mission." The call went out across Eclipse Base, and within hours, a small team had formed. Jake volunteered to lead the mission, knowing his piloting skills would be crucial. Alongside him were 2 seasoned pilots, a mechanic named Sam and Rachel, who insisted on coming despite her lack of combat experience. "I know their codes," she argued. "You might need me." Preparations moved quickly. The team worked around the clock to modify an old transport ship, outfitting it with cloaking technology and upgraded weapons based on Mia's designs. As they labored, tension grew among the recruits left behind. Some questioned whether the mission was worth the risk, while others worried about how they'd defend the base without Jake and his best fighters. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. The team gathered in the hangar, their faces a mix of determination and fear. Ethan addressed them before they boarded. "This isn't just about hitting their supplies," he said. "It's about showing them, and ourselves, that we can fight back. Bring everyone home if you can. But remember, the mission comes first." As the ship launched into the darkness of space, those left behind held their breath. Back at Eclipse Base, Mia monitored the mission's progress, her fingers flying over keyboards as she tracked the ship's position and relayed updates to Ethan. Hours passed in tense silence until finally, Jake's voice crackled over the comms. "We're in position," he reported. "Engaging the target now." The team struck swiftly, disabling several cargo ships and scattering the Council's convoy. Explosions lit up the void as crates of weapons and fuel tumbled into space. The Council's response was swift, sending fighter drones to intercept the attackers. Jake maneuvered the ship through a storm of enemy fire, his hands steady on the controls. Rachel worked frantically to jam the Council's signals, buying precious seconds for the team to escape. When the mission ended, the team limped back to Eclipse Base, battered but victorious. They had destroyed enough supplies to delay the Council's plans significantly. More importantly, they had proven that humanity could strike where it hurt most. But the victory came at a cost. One of the pilots didn't make it back, and Sam returned badly injured. Still, the mood at the base shifted. People cheered as the ship landed, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that they weren't powerless. The Council had underestimated them once again, and Nova Dawn was ready to keep proving them wrong. The success of the supply raid gave Nova Dawn a much-needed boost, but it also sparked an idea in Mia's mind. If they could disrupt the Council's operations once, why not again, and on a larger scale? She spent every waking moment in her lab, poring over schematics and running simulations. Her goal was clear: to build a weapon so advanced that it would level the playing field between humanity and the Council. The result of her efforts was Vanguard 1, a prototype starship unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Vanguard 1 wasn't just a ship. It was a statement, sleek and angular. It was equipped with experimental plasma cannons, reinforced shields, and cloaking technology that made it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Its engines were powerful enough to outrun Council fighters, and its targeting systems were precise down to the millimeter. For weeks, Mia worked tirelessly alongside Sam, who had recovered from his injuries, fine-tuning every detail until the ship was ready for action. When Ethan first saw Vanguard 1, he couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. "This might be our best chance," he said, running his hand along the ship's polished hull. "But we need someone skilled to pilot it." Jake stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll do it," he said. "You know I'm the best shot we've got." Ethan nodded, though his expression remained serious. "This isn't like the last mission. Once you're out there, there's no backup. You'll be on your own." "I can handle it," Jake replied, his tone firm. He knew the risks, but he also knew how important this mission was. If Vanguard 1 succeeded, it could change the course of the war. The plan was simple yet daring. Using intelligence gathered from previous missions, Nova Dawn identified key Council outposts scattered across the solar system. These outposts served as relay stations for communication and logistics, keeping the Council's forces coordinated. By destroying them, Jake could cripple their ability to wage war effectively. The challenge lay in reaching these targets undetected and escaping before reinforcements arrived. On the day of the launch, the atmosphere at Eclipse Base was tense. Rachel joined Jake on the mission, her knowledge of Council codes ensuring they could bypass security measures. As the two climbed aboard Vanguard 1, Ethan addressed them one last time. "Remember, speed is your ally. Hit hard, hit fast, and get out. We're counting on you." With a final nod, Jake powered up the engines, and Vanguard 1 shot into the sky, disappearing into the vastness of space. Over the next several days, the ship became a ghost, striking Council outposts with devastating precision. Each attack left the Council scrambling, their carefully orchestrated plans unraveling as communication lines faltered and supply chains collapsed. Back at Eclipse Base, morale soared. News of Vanguard 1's exploits spread quickly, inspiring both recruits and refugees alike. People began to see the war not as a hopeless struggle, but as a fight they could win. Even those who had doubted Nova Dawn's chances started to believe in the possibility of victory. For Jake and Rachel, however, The mission took its toll. The constant pressure of evading detection, the weight of responsibility, and the isolation of deep space wore on them. Yet they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that each successful strike brought humanity closer to reclaiming its freedom. By the time Vanguard 1 returned to eclipse space, battered but triumphant, the Council's grip on the solar system had weakened significantly. The crew of Nova Dawn erupted in cheers as the ship touched down, welcoming Jake and Rachel back as heroes. But amidst the celebration, Ethan reminded everyone that the war was far from over. "We've hurt them," he said, addressing the crowd, "but they won't stop coming. This is just the beginning. We've shown them what we're capable of. And now, it's time to finish what we started." The message was clear. Humanity's revenge was only getting started. The victories achieved by Vanguard 1 brought hope to eclipse space, but they also exposed cracks within Nova Dawn. Not everyone agreed on how to proceed. Some members felt Ethan's cautious approach was costing too much time and lives. Among them was Alex Rivera, a former soldier who had joined the resistance after losing his family in the Council's initial attacks. Alex believed in taking bigger risks, launching all-out assaults that would force the Council into retreat. "We're playing it safe," Alex argued during a heated meeting in one of the base's dimly lit tunnels. "Every day we wait, more people die. We need to hit them where it hurts. Directly. Take the fight to their command centers." Ethan listened patiently, his expression calm but firm. "I understand your frustration, Alex, but rushing in blindly will get us killed. We've made progress because we've been strategic. If we lose eclipse space, we lose everything." Alex shook his head, his voice rising. "Progress? Is that what you call this? Hiding underground while the Council destroys what's left of Earth? We can't keep running forever." The argument spread through the room, voices overlapping as others chimed in. Some sided with Alex, eager for action, while others supported Ethan's careful planning. The tension grew until Jake stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. "Listen up," Jake said, his tone sharp. "I've been out there. I've seen what they're capable of. Yes, we need to fight, but we need to do it smart. If we throw everything we've got at them now, we'll lose. And if we lose, humanity loses." His words seemed to quiet the group, but the division remained. Later that night, Ethan found himself sitting alone in the control room, staring at maps and schematics. He knew Alex wasn't entirely wrong. Time was running out, and the Council wouldn't wait forever. But he also couldn't risk everything on a gamble. He needed to remind everyone why they were fighting, not just for revenge, but for survival. The next morning, Ethan called for an assembly. As people gathered in the main chamber of Eclipse Base, he stood on a makeshift platform, looking out at the crowd. Faces stared back at him, some hopeful, some angry, all weary from months of war. "I know many of you are frustrated," Ethan began, his voice steady. "I am too. Every life lost weighs heavily on me. But let me remind you why we're here. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every person who's suffered under the Council's cruelty. For every child who's gone hungry, every family torn apart. This isn't about glory or pride. It's about freedom." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "Yes, the road is hard. Yes, sacrifices will have to be made. But if we stick together, if we trust each other, we can win. The Council thought we'd crumble. They thought we'd give up. But look around you. Look at what we've built here. We've shown them we're stronger than they ever imagined. And we're not done yet." The speech struck a chord. Even Alex, standing near the back of the crowd, lowered his gaze, his anger softening. People began to clap, their applause echoing through the tunnels like a promise to keep going. In the days that followed, unity returned to Nova Dawn. Alex apologized to Ethan, admitting he'd let his emotions cloud his judgment. Ethan accepted the apology, knowing leadership meant understanding different perspectives. Together, they refocused their efforts, preparing for the final phase of the war. Mia worked tirelessly on new weapons, while Jake trained fresh recruits using lessons learned from Vanguard 1's missions. Rachel continued decoding intercepted transmissions, uncovering vital information about the Council's command structure. Slowly but surely, Novadon pieced together a plan to strike at the heart of the enemy's power. As the pieces fell into place, Ethan allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The journey had been long and painful, but one thing was certain: humanity's spirit burned brighter than ever. They had been betrayed, attacked, and pushed to the brink, but they refused to break. Now, it was time to show the Council just how far they were willing to go to reclaim their future. The final plan was set. Using intelligence gathered from Rachel's decoding efforts, Novadon identified the Council's command hub, a massive orbital station located near Saturn. This station served as the nerve center for the Council's entire operation, coordinating attacks and managing resources across their fleet. If it could be destroyed, the Council's forces would fall into chaos, giving humanity a real chance to turn the tide of the war. Ethan knew the mission would be dangerous, perhaps the most perilous they had attempted yet. The command hub was heavily guarded, surrounded by layers of defense systems and patrolled by elite Council ships. But it was also their best opportunity to end the war once and for all. He gathered his team in the control room of Eclipse Base to lay out the strategy. "We'll split our forces," Ethan explained, pointing to a holographic map floating above the table. "Jake will lead a small strike team aboard Vanguard 1 to infiltrate the command hub. While they're inside, the rest of us will launch a diversionary attack on nearby Council outposts. This should draw their attention away from the hub long enough for Jake to complete the mission." Mia stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "Vanguard 1 has been upgraded with new shielding and explosives designed specifically for this target. Once inside, you'll need to plant the charges in key areas to ensure maximum damage." Jake nodded, his expression grim. "We'll get it done, but we won't have much time. If we're caught, there's no backup coming." Ethan turned to the group, his voice firm. "This is it, the moment we've been preparing for. Humanity's future depends on us. Let's make sure we don't fail." As the team dispersed to prepare, Mia pulled Ethan aside. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed him a data chip. "I've programmed the explosives to overload the hub's core. It'll take 10 minutes to arm them. Make sure Jake knows not to waste a second." "I will," Ethan promised, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've done everything you can. Now it's up to us to see it through." The day of the assault arrived. The air at Eclipse Base was thick with tension as fighters scrambled to their positions. Jake and Rachel boarded Vanguard 1, accompanied by a small crew of volunteers. As the ship launched into space, Ethan led the ground forces in a simultaneous attack on the Council's outposts. Explosions lit up the sky as human fighters clashed with alien ships, drawing the enemy's focus away from the command hub. Inside Vanguard 1, Jake navigated the treacherous path toward the hub, dodging patrols and slipping past defenses thanks to Rachel's coding skills. When they finally docked, the team moved quickly, planting explosives in critical locations. Alarms blared as Council forces realized what was happening, but Jake kept his cool, guiding his team through narrow corridors filled with enemies. Back on Earth, Ethan monitored the battle from Eclipse Base, his heart pounding as he waited for news. Finally, Jake's voice crackled over the comms. "Charges are set. We're heading back to the ship." But as Vanguard 1 prepared to leave, Council reinforcements arrived, blocking their escape route. Jake made a split-second decision. "Go without me," he told his crew. "I'll hold them off long enough for you to get clear." Rachel protested, tears streaming down her face, but Jake cut her off. "This isn't just about us. It's about everyone back on Earth. Get out of here." With heavy hearts, the crew obeyed, leaving Jake behind to face overwhelming odds. As Vanguard 1 escaped, Jake activated the self-destruct sequence, ensuring the hub's destruction. Moments later, a blinding explosion ripped through space, obliterating the command hub and crippling the Council's forces. At Eclipse Base, silence fell as the news sank in. Humanity had paid a heavy price, but the war was far from over. The Council's grip had been shattered, and for the first time, hope burned brighter than fear. The destruction of the Council's command hub sent shockwaves through their forces. Without their central control, the alien fleet descended into disarray. Ships drifted aimlessly, unable to coordinate attacks or respond effectively to Nova Dawn's strikes. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had the upper hand. But victory came at a cost. Back at Eclipse Base, the mood was somber. Jake's sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone, especially Rachel, who had barely spoken since returning from the mission. She spent hours staring at the data chip Jake had entrusted to her, replaying his final words in her mind. "This isn't just about us," he had said. "It's about everyone back on Earth." Ethan tried to lift spirits by reminding them of what they had achieved. "Jake gave everything so we could have this chance," he told the group during a meeting. "We owe it to him, and to everyone who's fought and died to finish what we started." Mia threw herself into work, determined to honor Jake's memory. She upgraded the remaining ships with new technology scavenged from damaged Council vessels. Her hands moved quickly, but her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. The loss of Jake hit her hard. He had been more than a teammate. He had been a friend. Meanwhile, Ethan coordinated the next phase of the war. With the Council's forces scattered, Nova Dawn launched a series of targeted assaults on key locations. Fighter squads struck enemy supply depots, disabling weapons caches and cutting off reinforcements. Ground teams reclaimed cities that had fallen under Council control, freeing survivors who had been living in fear for months. One such operation took place in Paris, where Council hybrid soldiers patrolled the ruins of the once vibrant city. Led by Alex Rivera, the team moved silently through the streets, using guerrilla tactics to take down their enemies one by one. It was dangerous work, but Alex's leadership kept morale high. When the last hybrid soldier fell, cheers erupted from the liberated citizens, many of whom joined Nova Dawn's ranks. Despite these successes, challenges remained. Supplies were running low, and injuries mounted as battles grew fiercer. Refugees poured into Eclipse Base daily, seeking shelter and safety. Mia worked tirelessly to treat the wounded, often staying up all night to ensure no one was left behind. Her dedication inspired others to do the same, creating a sense of unity even in the darkest moments. Rachel eventually found a way to channel her grief into action. Using the knowledge she'd gained while decoding Council transmissions, she developed a program capable of hacking into their remaining communication networks. This breakthrough allowed Nova Dawn to intercept orders and predict enemy movements, giving them a crucial edge in battle. As weeks turned into months, the tide of the war shifted decisively in humanity's favor. Council ships retreated further into space, abandoning conquered territories rather than risk another devastating defeat. Survivors around the world began rebuilding, planting crops in fields that had lain fallow and repairing homes that had been reduced to rubble. Yet amid the progress, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the fight wasn't over. The Council still possessed vast resources and advanced technology. If given time, they could regroup and return stronger than ever. He shared his concerns with Mia one evening as they stood outside the base, looking up at the stars. "We've weakened them," Ethan said, his voice quiet but firm. "But they're not gone. Not yet." Mia nodded, her expression resolute. "Then we keep fighting. For Jake, for Earth, for everyone." Their resolve solidified as reports came in of a massive Council ship retreating toward the edge of the solar system. It was heavily armed and shielded, likely carrying leaders or critical assets. If destroyed, it would deal a final blow to the Council's power. Ethan called a meeting to discuss the plan. "This is our chance to end it," he said, addressing the group. "If we can take out that ship, we send a message loud and clear. Humanity will not be ruled." Everyone agreed. It was a risk worth taking. Preparations began immediately, with every available resource poured into the effort. The stage was set for one last, decisive confrontation. Humanity had already proven its resilience. Now it was time to prove its strength. The war might have started with betrayal, but it would end with triumph, or nothing at all. The final battle began under the cover of darkness. Nova Dawn's ships launched from Eclipse Base, their engines roaring as they raced toward the retreating Council vessel. Ethan led the charge, his voice steady over the comms as he coordinated the attack. "Stay sharp," he said. "This is it." Mia had equipped the fleet with everything she could muster: enhanced weapons, reinforced shields, and targeting systems fine-tuned for precision. Rachel's hacking program provided real-time updates on the Council ship's defenses, giving the rebels a critical advantage. As they approached, the alien vessel loomed ahead like a mountain of steel and light, its surface bristling with cannons and turrets. The first wave of fighters struck hard, drawing the Council's fire while smaller ships slipped past the outer defenses. Explosions lit up the void as missiles streaked through space, blasting holes in the enemy's armor. Inside one of the lead ships, Alex guided his team with fierce determination, shouting orders as they dodged incoming fire. "Keep moving," he yelled. "Don't let them pin you down." Back at Eclipse Base, Mia monitored the battle from the control room, her hands flying across keyboards as she relayed vital information to the fleet. Her eyes darted between screens, tracking the positions of both human and Council forces. When she noticed a weak point in the Council ship's shielding, she immediately alerted Ethan. "There's an opening near the rear propulsion system," Maya said over the comms. "If we hit it now, we can cripple their engines." Ethan didn't hesitate. "All units, focus fire on the rear section. Take out those engines." The combined firepower of Nova Dawn's fleet converged on the target, tearing through the weakened shields. The Council ship shuddered under the assault, its massive engines sputtering before going dark. Trapped and unable to flee, the alien vessel became a sitting target. But the Council wasn't ready to surrender. Reinforcements poured out of the ship, swarms of drones and hybrid soldiers launching desperate counterattacks. The battle raged on, each side refusing to give ground. Amid the chaos, Rachel made a bold decision. She boarded a small transport ship and flew directly toward the Council vessel, intent on planting explosives deep within its core. "Rachel, what are you doing?" Ethan demanded when he saw her trajectory. "I'm finishing this," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "You gave me a purpose when I thought I had none. Let me do this for Jake, for all of us." Before anyone could stop her, Rachel breached the Council ship's hull and disappeared inside. Moments later, a series of explosions ripped through the vessel, cascading outward until the entire structure collapsed into a fiery cloud of debris. Silence fell over the comms as the survivors absorbed what had happened. Tears streamed down faces, but there was no time to grieve. The Council's forces were broken, their leaders destroyed. Humanity had won. In the days that followed, Earth began to heal. Cities were rebuilt, crops planted, and families reunited. Ethan addressed the survivors, his voice filled with both pride and sorrow. "We've paid a heavy price, but we've proven something important. Humanity cannot be ruled. We stand together, united, stronger than ever." As Rachel stood among the crowd, staring up at the stars, she felt a spark of hope. The war had changed her, hardened her, but it had also shown her the strength of the human spirit. Somewhere beyond the ruins of Earth, new challenges awaited. But for now, humanity was free and ready to face whatever came next.